I want to ask you something that most financial advisors never thought to ask. What assets does your household own that produces food? Not financial assets, not property assets, and not shares or superannuation values either. I'm talking living, producing biological assets. Plants, trees, systems in the ground that actually generate food and therefore money every single season. For most households, the answer is none. Or that one random lemon tree that grandma put in about 30 years ago. That gap between what your household could be generating from a biological asset and what it actually does produce represents one of the most underestimated opportunities in personal financial resilience that exists. Now let's reframe something. When people think about growing food, they think about a vegetable garden, something that they have to put effort into, something that requires mixed results, time and energy, and something that's fundamentally a hobby. But I want you to think about it completely differently. Growing food is an investment in biological assets that have a measurable return on investment and actually give you dividends. A fruit tree costs anything from $30 to $100. It produces food for 30 to 50 years. In most climates, the average fruit tree produces between 20 and 100 kilograms of fruit every season. At retail, that fruit's worth anything from $50 to $300 every year for 30 to 50 years. Now, that's not a hobby. That's an asset with an extraordinary return. A no-dig vegetable garden costs almost nothing to establish. Cardboard, compost, and a few hours on a Saturday morning. A bed planted with the right crops at the right time of year can produce significantly more than the cost to establish it. And that's just within the first season. An established herb garden, something as simple as rosemary, thyme, parsley, chives, and basil growing on a balcony or on a windowsill, saves the average household anything from $5 to $15 every single week. And that's just in herbs alone. This is between $250 and $700 every single year from something that sits on a windowsill. But the financial return is only just part of the picture. And honestly, it's not even the most important part. When a household grows food, something changes in how that household understands food and its place within the food system. You begin to understand that food is not a commodity that has to be manufactured in a factory somewhere. It's a living thing that takes time and the right conditions and care to be able to produce it right. You begin to understand what a season is and why it matters, what your soil needs and what your climate allows. And most importantly, what the relationship between your land and your table actually looks like. And that understanding, that shift from being a consumer to a producer, even in a small way, changes every decision that follows. You tend to waste less because you know what it takes to grow it. You tend to preserve more because you just can't bear to let that harvest go to waste. And you connect differently to the food on the table because you had a hand in putting it there. Now, I want to talk to you about what I mean when I say everybody grows something, because this is a rule that I have in my program. It's not a guideline, it's a rule. Every household grows something that their family eats. And not because everybody needs to be a farmer or there's something inherently virtuous about growing food, but because a household that grows nothing is entirely dependent on the system that provides food. And that's a system that you just can't control. So a household that begins to grow something, anything, even a small bushel of herbs, begins to reclaim that control and starts to break that dependence. It doesn't matter where you live. It doesn't matter if it's an apartment, in a rental, on a balcony, in a cottage, on an acreage, on a farm. Whether you're a broadacre commodity farmer, you adapt the approach to where you live and you grow something. So in a flat, it could be containers on a balcony, herbs on a windowsill, or space in a community garden. In a suburbia, it could be replacing your front lawn with no-dig garden beds, a couple of fruit trees in the backyard, climbing beans on the fence, and a herb spiral near where the kitchen door is. In a rural setting, the full expanse is at your disposal. Food forest, perennial systems using syntropic agroforestry, designed to produce for decades with decreasing inputs over its lifetime. It's the scale that changes, but the principles just don't. I want to talk to you about the no-dig garden method specifically. And this approach I teach for a reason, and it's not because it's fashionable or trendy right now. It's because it's practical. Digging destroys the living system in your soil. Every time you turn the earth, you disrupt the fungal networks, the microbial life. It's the invisible infrastructure that makes your soil productive. Think of it like the internet. It's invisible, and it works, and it's connected to everything, and it's everywhere, and it just functions. That's exactly what's happening underneath your soil, because no-dig gardening works with the infrastructure instead of against it. To start a no-dig garden bed, you just need to put the cardboard directly on the ground. It can suppress grass and weeds or go directly over compacted clay. It smothers out whatever's there without disturbing the soil. Compost goes straight on top of that. We're talking a good 10 to 15 centimetres. It's rich, it's living, and it's ready to grow in immediately. Mulch can go on top of that. Straw or sugarcane, it keeps the moisture in, the weeds out, and the temperature stable. That's it. You plant directly into that compost layer. The cardboard rots down and becomes part of the soil after a few months. And the whole system improves year on, year out. It works on any soil type, anywhere, and on any budget. I have built no-dig garden beds absolutely everywhere. I've done them on old concrete, on sides of a hill, in rentals, on compacted clay, on coastal sand, and on overgrown lawn. It works every single time. But now I'd like to talk to you about the bigger picture and where this is all headed. Because a vegetable bed is the beginning, it's not the destination. The destination, the longer game, is actually perennial food systems. An annual garden bed has to be planted year after year. It needs continual inputs and demands regular attention. And in some form, it's always starting back from zero. But a perennial food system gets better with every single year. It builds soil every year. It produces more with less effort every year. A fruit tree that you establish in years 1 and 2 produces in years 3 and 4 for decades. Perennial herbs that you can put in this autumn can potentially still be there in 20 years. A food forest, which is designed on guild planting and agroforestry principles, where plants support one another and build the system together, becomes more productive, becomes more self-fulfilling, and more valuable every season that it stands. This is the investment mindset applied to biological assets. You are not gardening for this year's harvest. You are building a producing system that will feed your family and possibly your grandchildren for the rest of your life. This is not a hobby. It's a legacy. And that's what I'm building. I want to leave you with one thing before the next video. Think about the plants that you eat from the most often, the vegetables that you buy every single week, the herbs that you use consistently, the fruit that your kids reach for time and time again. Now, imagine those things growing at some form, in some scale, in or around your home. They don't have to be perfect, and they don't have to be pumping out produce every single week. But they're there, producing, and are returning your investment. This is the beginning of what I'm describing. It all starts with one bed, one tree, or one pot on a windowsill. In video 5, I'm going to walk you through preservation. It's about the skills that connect the garden to the pantry, and they close the loop on the 12-month food security plan. But it's also about something much more than that. I'll see you there.